In this video, I'll show you how to start working with R. First thing I like to do when I'm using R is to set my working directory, which I can do by going up to Session, Set Working Directory, choose Directory, and then I'm going to select the folder that I want to work in. And when you do this, you'll see in the console the function set working directory and then the folder that you just selected. Anytime you want to get help on a function, you can type into the console window help and then the name of the function, and then over in the help pane in the lower right corner you'll see some documentation on that function. This can be a little bit technical, but there's often useful information there. So one thing that R can do is work as a calculator. So for example, if I just type in 1 plus 1, I get the answer 2. Or if I type 2 times 3, I get 6. Or 3 to the power 2, or 3 squared is 9. Or square root of 4 is 2, and so on. Any function that you can think of is pretty much going to be possible to calculate. Another thing I like to do when I'm working with R, instead of typing everything into the console window as I've been doing, instead I work with script files. So to start a new script file, we can go up to File, New File, and Script, and it will split the pane on the left hand side into two, and the top one is now your script file. So if I just type in the same functions that I entered just now, okay, and then I'm going to save this script file, and then I'm going to call this R tutorial 1. And I've actually already set this up, so I'm not gonna redo this just now. So I'll just actually cancel that, and I'm going to get rid of what I just did, and I'm going to recall the function, the script file that I saved earlier. Okay, so you can see that the top bit is exactly what I just typed in before. So now, to run a command, all I do is move my cursor to the line in the script file that I want to run, and I just click Run up here. And then down in the console window, you should be able to see that it entered 1 plus 1. And then up in the script file, it's moved to the next line, so I can run 2 times 3, 3 squared, square root of 4, and so on. When you're working with scripts, it's a good idea to annotate your script file with comments, so that when you review this in the future, you'll remember what you did, or if you give the file to someone else, they'll be able to see what you did. So to denote a comment, you use a hashtag symbol, and that tells R to ignore everything after the hashtag in that line. And so this is how to annotate your files with descriptions that you will understand, but that R won't get confused and try and interpret. So for example, if I type log 100, I might want to remind myself that the default log function calculates the natural log. If I want to calculate a different log, let's suppose I've forgotten how to do that, I could go over to the help window in the bottom right pane and type log, and it tells me what the log function does by default natural logarithms, and to get a different base, I use the argument base equals and then whatever base I want to use. So, for example, if I want to calculate the base 10 logarithm of 100, I type log 100 base equals 10. So let me just run those two commands so you can see what happens. There's the natural log of 100, 4.60517, and here's the base 10 log of 100, which of course is 2. The real power of R comes in when we start to use variables though. So to denote a variable, you use the assignment operator, and the assignment operator is a less than symbol and then a hyphen. So it kind of looks like a left-hand arrow, but on the keyboard all you're doing is you're typing a less than symbol and a hyphen together, and then that tells R to assign the value 5 to the letter X. So if I run that and then I just run X by itself, R returns the output 5. And now I can do other things like adding 2 to X to get 7. I could reassign the value 6 to X, and then R returns a 6 when I type X. So when you're setting up variables like this, you just need to make sure that you're using syntax that R will understand. So for example, the name has to start with a letter. The subsequent characters can be letters or numbers or underscores. You're not allowed to use spaces or symbols that have other meanings, such as a minus sign. And you've also got to remember that X is case sensitive. So if I type in a capital X down here, it's not going to find it. I have to type a lowercase x. Typically, when we're doing statistical analysis in R, we're going to be working with vectors. And so a vector is, we could just think of it as a string of numbers. So for example, let's suppose I have 6 measurements of temperature. And these ones are recorded in Celsius. So I'm going to call this variable temp C. And to put these 6 numbers together in a vector, we use the R function C. It just collects the numbers together into a vector. So if I run that, and then if I just highlight some code in my script, it'll just run what's highlighted. So down here in the console you can see that temp C is the vector 21, 29, 20, 10, 23 and 17. And now I can manipulate that vector. So for example, if I wanted to calculate the temperatures in Fahrenheit, I can create a new vector, a new variable called temp F. There's the assignment operator, and how that's calculated is by taking temp C, multiplying by 9 divided by 5, and then adding 32. So if I run that and then look at the temperatures in Fahrenheit, I can see that 21 degrees Celsius is equivalent to 69.8 degrees Fahrenheit. 29 degrees Celsius is 84.2 degrees Fahrenheit, and so on. When you have vectors set up, you can refer to individual elements of those vectors rather than the entire thing. So for example, the way that we do this is using a square bracket. So if I type temp C square brackets 2, that's going to pick off the second element in that vector. Okay, so remember, here was my vector of temperatures in Celsius. The second one is 29, and that's what I get if I type temp square brackets 2, temp C square brackets 2. If I use this code, so 3:5, that means all the elements between 3 and 5. So in other words, the third, fourth, and fifth elements. And then if I use a minus sign, that means all the elements except for what's referred to in the minus sign. So in this case, it would be everything except the sixth element. We can also calculate summary statistics from our data recorded in the vector. So if I wanted to calculate the sample mean, I just use the function mean, or the sum, and then length is actually the length of the vector. So in other words, how many observations in my vector. So we often call that the sample size. So that's a quick introduction into starting to work with R and using script files, working with variables, and working with vectors.